Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, so welcome all. We are taking part in this live virtual revisionary classes, which is part of our curriculum for the January 2025 exams. So these classes are only revisionary classes. That is what you have to keep in mind. The regular classes have already been completed. So people who have been attending those classes, they will really get the benefit of these revisionary classes. And students who just want to rehearse or want to practice, want to take a gist of the whole law, for them also these classes are conducted. But the objective is that these are revisionary classes, so basic concepts are the in-depth analysis like how we take for regular classes will not be there. So we expect that you know the basics, and we will only take questions over here, which is your doubts with respect to the exam, so that we can then deal with and clear out your queries. That is the objective. So that's what is the revisionary classes meant for. But anyhow, we'll see the number of questions coming in. If the number of questions are really less, then we will go through the concepts and understand, because the time allotted to us is 2.5 hours. We will take sessions from 3 to 5:30 on every Friday and Sunday, so that other days you could study those materials, study the chapters which are there for the next classes, and then we could take up those questions. As terms of introduction, I am Deepak Jain. I am a chartered accountant and I practice as a company secretary. I am based out of Bangalore. I I have a practice experience of close to 15 years now. Was having experience in service tax and to some extent customs and state VAT. And after GST came in, I am fully involved into GST. And being a company secretary, I have a keen interest in the company law matters. And I am a practicing company secretary in Bangalore, been associated with the institute just before the GST came in, wherein there was a faculty group which was selected, and I'm one of the faculty members with the institute for the GST. And I've been taking a lot of presentations and seminars on GST. That's the journey has been since 2017. Our pre 2017 itself, before the law came in itself, we were reading the model law, and I have helped the institute on writing some modules for the institute, like you had this annual returns. Okay. uh, Technical guide on annual return, I've been a part of that. So the various other initiatives have been taken. So that's my brief introduction. In terms of these revisional classes, what is the crowd like? Are you okay in listening only to English, or English and Hindi would be fine with you? Mixture would be fine. Very nice. Okay. English only. Okay. Few people are saying English only. So fine. So might be few people are not conversant with Hindi. That's okay. But wherever required, I will explain in Hindi, because few people are comfortable only with Hindi and few people are comfortable only with English. So it'll be better that, yes, as Nagesh has said, it's a composite supply. So we'll do a composite supply of the language also. So we are clear there. Awesome. So, have you all give me a thumbs up and give me your response that are you comfortable or with the basics? Have you gone through one set of reading of the basics? Have you done your thing? So we are only doing revisions here. Very good. Awesome. Okay. So then we will skip those chapters or those slides which I have, which is very basic, which we are not required to concentrate on, because those slides or those presentations are meant to set the background. And if you have one set of reading, then that background will not be required. So those places wherever it is expected to skip, I will skip it. But the presentations will be made available to you so you can see it anytime. Okay. Uh, what I'll do is, in terms of timing, what we'll do is we will have questions taken up every half an hour so that it becomes easy, so that we are not diverging too much on one person's question. We will spread out the questions in such a way that we understand the concept, and any questions which comes up to you during the course is taken up in every half an hour. Whoever wants to ask the question can please unmute yourself and raise your hands. I will allow you to unmute, and then we could deal with it. All chapter revisions will be completed. Yes, all the chapters we have sufficient time, Priyanka. There will be sufficient time to cover revisions for all the chapters. Yeah, another relevant question is there any amendments for January 2025? I have, once we start with the introduction, what I'll do is I'll download the recent updates which are relevant for January 2025. You should also keep it handy. And whatever important updates are there, we will try to cover it up in those respective chapters. And there are specific updates. If the institute has not uploaded it by now, it should be there. Or if it is not there, then it will be uploaded in some point of time. So then we could go through that also. Yes. To start with, yes, Kavya, you can ask a question. Fine. So basics of taxation, we know what is taxation. Taxation is a burden that nobody wants to pay taxation. Taxation is a pecuniary burden which is levied by the authorities. Okay, so that's the basic of taxation. Now, what are the taxes which has got subsumed in GST? You have under, we'll see the subsumption, but before that, we'll do a classification of what are the different types of taxes. Direct tax is income tax and corporate tax and agricultural tax. Indirect tax is GST and customs. So even though all the previous laws have been subsumed, but the customs is not subsumed. So whenever you import anything, on the import, you still have to pay customs duty. Then there is tax on tax in terms of surcharge and cess. Even in your income tax, you pay surcharge and cess, and sometimes in customs also you pay surcharge and cess. Now, what are the main distinction between direct tax and indirect tax? Direct tax is one where the incidence of tax is borne directly by the taxpayer, by the person who is earning the income. So if you earn the income, you borne the tax of it. In case of an indirect tax, you don't bear the tax. The tax incidence is shifted to another person. If you are a seller, you are selling it, you are earning the money, but you will not pay taxes from it because the taxes is collected by the by the seller from the customer. So that's the incidence of tax, wherein in direct tax it is borne by the person, but in indirect tax it is shifting to another person. And another differentiation is direct tax is progressive in nature, as in when your income increases, you pay the taxes, which is if you have 1 lakh rupees, you'll pay, say, at a rate of 10%, 10,000 rupees. If your income is 10 lakh rupees, you'll pay 1 lakh rupees of tax. So as and when your income grows, your taxes also grows. But that's not the case in indirect taxes. Irrespective of your income, you pay the same tax, right? If you buy a packet of biscuit, person who is not having any income also pays the same tax on that, and a person who is wealthy enough also pays the same tax on the same product, right? So that's the reason indirect tax doesn't depend on the income status of the person. So a person who is able to pay the higher tax, also from them also same rate of tax is collected. So it doesn't progress as and when the income progresses. Okay, the person's capacity increases, but it is not going in that direction. It's not progressing in that direction. That's the reason considered as regressive in nature. And examples of direct tax, we know income tax, and indirect taxes, GST and customs. Now we'll understand what are the taxes which have been subsumed. जो taxes पुराने थे जीएसटी के पहले, वो जो जीएसटी आने के बाद हट गए हैं, what are those are the taxes which have got subsumed. सीजीएसटी में क्या क्या subsumed हो गया है? एक्साइज ड्यूटी, सर्विस टैक्स, सरचार्ज, सेस एंड एडिशनल ड्यूटी ऑफ एक्साइज. एसजीएसटी में क्या subsumed हो गया? वैट, परचेज टैक्स, luxury tax, surcharge, cess, entry tax. And in terms of IGST, what has got subsumed is the what is subsumed in IGST is the central sales tax and countervailing duty and special additional duty. So these are the taxes which were levied prior to GST. After GST has come in, all of these have got subsumed. Well, in terms of features of indirect tax, what you have to understand is it is an important source of revenue. It tax on the commodities and services. So it's, as the name suggests, it's a tax of goods and services. It's a goods and services tax. So you pay tax on the commodities and services. There is shifting of burden, like how we had seen previously, that the person who earns is not the one who pays the tax. The person who consumes is the one who pays the tax. So the burden of paying the tax is getting shifted. There is no perception of direct pinch. There is only an indirect pinch. There is no perception of a direct pinch in indirect taxes. It is inflationary in nature. Why so? Because as and when the tax is charged, the value or the price of the product increases, right? Now, you would have seen this example of nano car when Ratan Tata said that we'll bring up a car with a price below 1 lakh. He promised it, and then when the price was below 1 lakh, above 1 lakh, he said that I have promised that I will give a car with 1 lakh. Now the customs duty, the excise duty, and the VAT is so high that the prices is going up. That is not my mistake. So the price of the product got increased. The price of the car, even though manufacturing cost, the cost was 1 lakh rupees. After taxes, it went to close to 1.5 to 1.6 lakhs. So similarly, every product on which there is taxation which is levied, due to that, the prices of the product grows up, right? Because the seller will not absorb the cost. He will not absorb the cost of the GST. He will levy it on the customer. So the MRP, what we see, the MRP will increase because of the effect of the GST on all the products. It has a wider tax base because it covers everybody. Firstly, the taxpayer. A lot of people are getting under the tax net because if you do any transaction through e-commerce, if you do any transaction on which reverse charge is payable, right? And any transaction which you have made interstate. So if you make any interstate transaction, you have to register under GST. So those are the various measures through which the tax base is getting increased. So there is a wider tax base in case of a GST. It promotes social welfare. How does it promote social welfare? It promotes by saying levying taxes on those goods which are called sin goods at a higher rate. So those goods which should not be consumed, like tobacco, like all those goods and high-end goods which are luxury goods, they levy extra taxes on them through which the promotes the social welfare, so that the taxes is collected from the rich and given to the poor. Whatever taxes we collect, taxes we pay as GST goes to the government, and government uses that for various social measures. So that is how it promotes the social welfare. It is regressive in nature, like we have understood then. So these are the features of indirect taxes. Now yes, so just 5 minutes. I'll let your questions come in. Now, various timelines of how the GST was progressed and what is relevant for us is the dates will become relevant. You'll have to remember the important dates are the year wherein GST had come in. When did the GST discussion start? It started in 2000 when the Vajpayee government started discussion by setting up a empowered committee. Now you may get a multiple choice question, so you have to remember these dates. Announcing the GST was made by the finance minister first in 2006. Then nothing happened. A constitution amendment bill was introduced. That was the 115th amendment bill. But it had a time limit and it did not get passed within that time limit. So the 2011 constitution amendment bill, which was brought in, got lapsed because it was not passed. Then in 2014, again, a amendment bill was introduced. This was called as 122nd Amendment Bill. And that amendment bill got passed as a act. So first bill आता है, bill के बाद act आता है. Correct? So the Constitution 122nd Amendment Bill was introduced and it got passed as an act called as the Constitution 101st Amendment Bill. 101st Amendment Bill is the name of the bill, the name of the act. The act got passed as a Constitution 101st Amendment Act. The bill was 122nd Amendment Bill. Okay. And September 2016 was the first GST Council meeting. April 2017, the law had come in and the laws were passed. And first, all the states gave their consent because we know under GST, there is a dual GST model, right? Center and state. Now we have CGST at the center and SGST at the state. So whenever we make any supply, we know that there are two taxes. One is CGST and SGST. But the question is, can I levy CGST and SGST is not levied? Is it possible? We know that on an intrastate transaction, CGST and SGST is paid. Now the state is saying, okay, we will forego our revenue for some products. Don't pay SGST. Is that possible? Can we pay only CGST?
States may collect SGST and they have to give refund to the concerned taxpayers. Without collection, it is not possible. They can collect and they can make refund.
Correct. So they cannot do the
It is a
waive
dual
off or
system.
exemption. So they will have to collect it because all the decisions of the CGST and SGST is happening on the rates at the council, wherein each of these states are a member of the council. So they cannot say that no taxes will be levied. Whatever taxes is levied by the center, same has to be levied by the state. So the law is same. Whatever law is there under the central, that same law is there under the state also, except few sections which are in terms of administrative sections. All the provisions of the CGST is replicated in the SGST. That's the reason we see that any amendments, any budget amendments which is made doesn't get notified immediately because that has to be passed by the respective states also. So any provision, any changes you make in the central goods and service tax has to be passed by all the state goods and service tax act also. All the states have to pass it. Once they pass it, then it is good to notify those sections. And what Sir was saying was right, that if the state says that, okay, on some products, we don't want to levy GST, they will have to levy it and give the benefit through a refund mechanism. And then on 1st July 2017, once the law was passed, even Jammu and Kashmir came into the GST, and 8th July 2017, SGST Act was passed by the state of Jammu and Kashmir. More about GST, it's just a basic information, not relevant for us. Concept of GST in India, we'll understand this. Value added tax, it's a continuous chain of tax credits. The burden is borne by the final consumer and there is no cascading of taxes. There is no tax on tax. Like in excise, there was cascading of taxes, wherein on the product which was sold with excise duty, now that product was leviable to VAT also because excise duty was on manufacture. Now VAT was on sale. So if a 100 rupees product was manufactured, say 12 rupees was the excise duty, 112 rupees, and VAT was charged not on just 100, it was charged on the VAT plus value of excise. So 112 on 112 VAT was levied. So that was the cascading of taxes which we could see in the earlier regime. What were the deficiencies in the previous VAT system? The deficiencies were that it comprises two types of input credit, right? Now we have one input tax credit, but under pre-GST, the credit was different. Central was having a different credit ledger and state was having a different credit ledger. Okay. Think it like that, that you had two different ledgers and both of them never used to integrate or exchange with each other. Senvat would mean the credit which was available for a manufacturer in terms of the excise duty and the service tax. And in terms of service tax and excise was being credited to a common pool called as Senvat credit, and whatever respective state taxes they used to pay taxes when you buy something, that used to get claimed as a state VAT credit. So these were the two buckets of credits which were lying. And what were the deficiencies in this? There was the complete VAT system. What was the deficiency? There used to be double taxation of a single transaction, like in terms of software products. Software used to be dealt as a goods as well as services. The software companies never used to take a risk saying that, okay, we'll take an aggressive stand and pay it, because ultimately they had to pass on the tax to the customer. The tax burden has to be borne by the customer. So they used to play very safe and used to charge both VAT and service tax on many software products. Even on construction contracts, there used to be duplication of VAT and service tax. There was no SENVAT after manufacturing state. Once you manufacture and you let go the goods, a dealer who's buying it, he will not get the credit because he is not a manufacturer. So if a manufacturer sells from one manufacturer to another manufacturer, only then the other manufacturer would get the credit. Otherwise, the excise duty was a cost. No set off of SENVAT and VAT. SENVAT, Central Value Added Tax, the excise duty credit, was never fungible or was not able to set off with the VAT. Then there was non-integration of VAT and service tax. VAT and SENVAT never used to work together. Similarly, VAT and service tax also never used to meet together. They were not friends; they were enemies, because whatever a service provider purchases some goods, right? He's using it for his business. Still, even if he's using for his business, the VAT charged by the seller on the goods, service provider could not claim the credit, right? So that was so very unfortunate that somebody who is using the goods for his business, still he could not claim the credit. Non-inclusion of local taxes. Apart from VAT, they were luxury tax, entertainment tax that was never being absorbed. That was not creditable even with VAT. Then cascading of taxes, levy of non-VATable CST. There was cascading because of two reasons. When you used to make any interstate supply, then you had to pay CST. This CST was on sale, but it was collected by the center, right? Charged by the center. This CST was not transferred, so the credit of this was not available when you charge a VAT on your sale. Then inclusion of SENVAT in the value for imposing VAT. Like when you're doing a manufacturing activity, you have to sell a goods for 1,000 rupees, include the excise duty of 12%, say 120 rupees on that. Now 1,000 is the sale price. So you should ideally charge VAT on the 1,000, but no, VAT used to say that levy the VAT on the price, whatever you do before my sale. Before my sale, if you have excise duty, that is also treated as a sale price. So the sale price on which VAT was charged was on the value of the goods plus the excise duty. Okay. So that is how the cascading of taxes used to work. Yeah, now we'll understand framework of GST in India. Very clear. This is very simple. You have dual tax system where you have CGST and SGST, and you have wherever there is a union territory, UTGST. So you will have CGST and union territory tax. And in case of interstate transaction, you will have IGST. We are clear with this that within the state, you will charge CGST and SGST. within again a state, you will charge CGST and SGST. If the transaction is within a union territory, you will charge CGST and UTGST. And in case of any transfer from one state to another state, or from one state to another union territory, or to a supply to a foreign country, or receipt of something from the foreign country, you will charge IGST. Clear? Yeah. So some people have asked questions. Yash Khandal, you can ask your question.
Yes, sir. Sir, my question is, despite the fact that GST is introduced, why still there double taxation on some of the products like on tobacco, both GST and excise duty are levied?
Correct. That is very unfortunate because the collection of duties by the respective state or the respective center is so very high that they cannot forego those taxes. That's the reason in the law itself they have mentioned that from a specified date that will be removed. But since they are not in a position to let go the major taxes, tobacco, petroleum products, these are the products which gives major revenue to the government, so they are not able to let go it.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes, Yash Khandal.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, okay. So if the goods are being transported from say Maharashtra to Goa, so we'll have to pay SGST to both the state governments? No. See this example that it is from a Maharashtra to Goa. This is a scenario. This is Maharashtra and this is Goa. So it is a interstate transaction, right? So if it's a interstate transaction, you will pay IGST. You will not pay taxes to both the government because you are making a interstate sale. So you will pay a integrated goods and service tax. Yes, Sia.
Sir, can you explain the SENVAT and state VAT once more?
SENVAT and state VAT.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll explain it that with a Excel sheet so that with numbers, if we do it, we'll be in a better position. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So how the SENVAT and VAT used to work is pre-GST. We're talking of a scenario wherein a manufacturer is selling some goods. His selling price is 10,000 rupees. On that, he will charge excise duty. Excise duty, say if it was at 10%, he will charge 10,000 into 10%. The value is 11,000, but he's selling that there is a transfer of property. So VAT also will come in. On the same product, two taxes, is it possible? Firstly, yes, it is possible because it's on a different aspect. First, excise duty is on manufacturing and VAT is on sale transaction. So excise duty was levied. Now VAT, when it's levied, okay. So there are two concepts. Few people have challenged it and the constitution, and constitutionally the courts have held that yes, both excise duty and VAT can be charged. There is something called as a concept theory on two different aspect theory on two different aspects you're charging. It's possible. Okay, I agreed. Now at least VAT, when I'm charging, I should charge on 10,000 because that's the value of the goods. But no, VAT law says that you should charge VAT on the value, whatever is included just before making the sale, right? You are collecting excise duty, so include that also. On that, I will charge VAT. So excise duty on that, I will charge VAT and sell it. So this is a SENVAT credit. Excise duty, what is being charged from the manufacturer to the distributor, it's a SENVAT credit. Now, distributor is not a manufacturer. So he cannot claim the credit of this excise duty what is being charged by the manufacturer. This will become his cost and he will absorb that cost and his sale price will increase. So a product what is costing 10,000 will add up to his costing to 11,000 rupees because 1,000 rupees is not his credit. For 11,000, he will add his margin and sell at 15,000 and he will add VAT at 14.5%, reduce the input of what is VAT charged by the manufacturer and then sell it. And similarly, when he is giving to the retailer, he will not charge any excise duty. He will just charge VAT. That VAT is creditable. Now, retailer, when he sells, he will sell at 2016, that is 14.5%, and then he will utilize the credit. Ultimately, the cost to the consumer is when the retailer charges 18,000 and VAT on the 20,610. So it all depends on the margin what you have, what is your sale price, and what credit you can claim. So SEN-VAT credit is not claimable. VAT is creditable against the VAT credit. Clear, Sia?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we are discussing on what kind of taxes will be charged in what transaction. So in case of a foreign territory, on case of any import, IGST will be levied. So when you buy any goods and you will pay customs duty, along with customs duty, you will pay IGST. In case of import of services, you will just pay IGST. That is also one kind of a reverse charge. So apart from local reverse charge, when you import something, the recipient has to pay the tax. That is a IGST, that is a tax on reverse charge basis. Next is the legal framework for GST. The legal framework is, just one moment. GST में भी cess लगता है. हाँ, there is something called as a compensation cess that we will learn through, that for the loss of taxes, loss of revenue to the respective state government, there is a compensation cess which is levied, which is still being levied on certain products. The legislative framework is that you will charge CGST, whereas it's a single legislation for levying CGST. UTGST, this is for union territories without legislature, and SGST is for states and union territories with legislatures. So wherever there are union territories with legislature, they will not charge the respective UTGST Act. They will have their own SGST Act, like Delhi, Jammu and Kashmir, and Puducherry. These are the union territories, but still they have their own legislature. So these three union territories will have their own state VAT Act. Like Delhi के लिए union territory GST नहीं लगेगा, दिल्ली के लिए दिल्ली GST Act ही लगेगा. पुदुचेरी के लिए पुदुचेरी का union territory है, but union territory will not, that UT tax will not apply, but Puducherry tax will apply. Similarly, Jammu and Kashmir, but for Andaman and Nicobar, Lakshadweep, Dadar and Nagar Haveli, and Daman and Diu, and Chandigarh, for them, union territory tax will apply. Next is the registration aspect. Registration, you are clear, right? What is the limit for registration? Just 40 lakhs. Any other answers? 40 lakhs for goods, 20 lakhs for services. Few are saying 20 lakhs. Okay, everybody is saying. So this is the standard limit, that 20 lakhs is for services and 40 lakhs is for goods. Correct. Now slowly you are saying that yes, there is something called as a special category states. So for special category states, you have special limit, and you have some other states wherein the limit is 20 and 40, 10 and 20, and for few other states it is 20 and 40. Yes, very nice. So a easy way to understand is what Om Krishan Gupta has told, that 10 lakhs is for TNMM. TN मनोहरन को याद कीजिए, TN मनोहरन का नाम याद करके TNMM is the nomenclature for these 4 states: Tripura, Nagaland, Mizoram and Manipur. The limit is 10 lakhs. दोनों 10 lakhs goods और services के लिए है. 20 lakhs is for Putsam, Puducherry, Uttarakhand, Telangana, Sikkim, Andhra Pradesh and Meghalaya. So TNMM के लिए 10, Putsam के लिए 20, and all other states it is for 20 for services and 40 for goods. Clear? Okay, यूपी मस्त, वेरी नाइस. प्रियंका सिंह, यूपी वाले हैं हम लोग, यूपी मस्त बोलेंगे फॉर 20 लाख लिमिट. तो TNMM यूपी मस्त है 20 लाख के लिए, और बाकी सब के लिए 20 फॉर सर्विसेज एंड 40 फॉर गुड्स. सो दिस इज द लिमिट. डोंट जस्ट टेल 20 एंड 40, बिकॉज ये जो 4 और 6 स्टेट्स है उनके लिए लिमिट 4 के लिए 10 लाख है, और यूपी मस्त के लिए 20 लाख है, बाकी सब के लिए 20 एंड 40. Okay, then we've understood the registration. There is something called as a composition scheme. जब हम chargeability करेंगे तब we'll discuss in detail on the composition scheme, but let's understand now that composition scheme is a special kind of a scheme wherein you don't have to maintain lot of compliances. आपको monthly returns file करने की जरूरत नहीं. You have to file a annual return. Payment you do on a quarterly basis. So pay quarterly basis your taxes and file the returns annually. क्रेडिट का लोचा नहीं है. यू डोंट हैव टू वरी ऑफ द इनपुट टैक्स क्रेडिट, क्योंकि आपको क्रेडिट मिलेगा ही नहीं. क्रेडिट क्यों नहीं मिलेगा? क्योंकि आपका आउटपुट टैक्स ही इतना कम है, जो दूसरे रेगुलर डीलर्स आर चार्जिंग एट 18%. There you will charge only 1%. Okay. But if you're a restaurant, you will charge 5%. Otherwise, on your composition dealer who is dealing in goods, it is 1%. And composition dealer dealing in services, just 6%. 3% CGST, 3% SGST. And अगर selling of goods है तो 0.5% CGST and 0.5% SGST. Then we have exemptions. Exemption, is it good? Exemption is bad because the chain of the input tax credit is broken. So in a exemption, in a VAT credit, in the GST credit system, exemptions are not good because the credit gets flown, missed out. But for a consumer, it is good because On some products, if there are exemptions, or in some services it is exemption, he does not bear the taxes. So it becomes a burden on the last person who supplies it. Then there is seamless flow of credit. Seamless flow कैसे आएगा? CGST का credit, this we know it, but just for your brief understanding, let me know if you have any other different view. CGST input tax credit जो है वो किसके लिए use कर सकते हैं? You can use it for CGST, and if some credit is still left over in your input tax credit, you can utilize for the IGST. SGST credit you can utilize for SGST, and then you can utilize if something is left out for the IGST. CGST and SGST cannot get exchanged, like how SENVAT and VAT never used to be friends. Similarly, CGST and SGST are never friends. CGST credit cannot be utilized with SGST. SGST credit cannot be utilized with CGST. IGST, first you will utilize for your IGST output. If anything is left, then you will utilize for the CGST and SGST. Now this can be in any proportion. $10 lakhs is for special category state, but then the people will be demotivated to start the business there. No, people are motivated to start the business. GST, in fact, most of the people, Kashish, people take registration even before they touch their threshold limit because they want to claim the input tax credit, right? So since people want to take the input tax credit, even though they have made a transaction of just 5 lakhs, they feel that they don't want to pay the taxes and not take the benefit of it. And initially, when somebody takes up the registration or starts a business, they will have a lot of capital goods with them, right? So even on the traded goods, the taxes will be less. When they buy machineries, then you buy furnitures, those credits will be available to you. So in fact, whenever somebody starts a business without reaching the threshold, they should take the credit, they should take the registration and avail the credit, because if you do not take the registration, then you can't claim the credit. For IGST, we give first CGST and balance in SGST. We first give IGST, then give balance in CG and SGST in either proportion. So there is no compulsion that IGST के लिए first you have to use IGST, then CGST, and then if something is left out in SGST, no. Once you do IGST, then utilize that IGST credit for IGST payment, then balance for C and S in any proportion. Any more questions till now?
No, sir.
Okay. We'll take a break of 5 minutes and we'll come back and discuss the further.
So,
Yes, please.
so I just wanted to ask, how is GST regressive in nature, although the amount of tax doesn't get reduced as the amount of goods or services increases?
Correct. So when the value of the product increases, the expectation is the tax should exceed. Correct. But now, since the value of the product changes, but the percentage or the tax payment on that doesn't increase proportionately, that's the reason it is treated as regressive.
So basically, since it is not progressive, we are treating it as regressive.
Correct. Correct.
Thank you.
Priyanka, what kind of additional questions? Okay, Komalpreet, your question is for SGST, do we use IGST? No, for SGST, we use first SGST and then we use the balance for IGST. First, use the like with like taxes, the credit of SGST with SGST first, credit of IGST with IGST first, then with CGST and SGST. So first use it with the same state or the same center and then use it with the IGST. Okay, we'll just take a break of 5 minutes here. Okay. Fine. So we have seen the utilization of credit. Now let's proceed with the next important aspects of GST. One is the portal, that you have a common portal for all the states. Okay. You have a single portal from wherever you log in. You can use this portal for registration and for filing all kinds of returns, refunds, filing of appeals. So there is a common portal which is gst.gov.in. For e-way bill, we have a separate portal, and for invoice registration, that is for e-invoicing, we have a different portal. So only for e-way bill and e-invoicing we have a different portal, but for everything else there is one portal, and it's a common portal across all the states and all the union territories. And we have a concept of GSP and ASP, which is GSP is a GST Suvidha provider, and ASP is a application service provider. GSP interacts with the portal, ASP interacts with the GSP and the taxable person. Compensation cess is levied as a additional tax. This will not be there permanently, but initially it was planned for 5 years, but the government got used to it that it's continuing. But as of today, because why I'm saying it as of today is after some point of time it may get changed, right? So as of today, it will be levied only up till 31st March 2026. As and when we are close to those dates when it will get ended, then they will extend it further, right? So that's the general trend. So, but for now, till 31st March 2026, any compensation cess charge, how is the credit claim? Compensation cess can be claimed against the compensation cess payable. Cess is used only with cess, no IGST, CGST, SGST intersection with that, no cross exchange of credit with CGST and the normal taxes with the compensation cess. Compensation cess, if you have paid, the input tax credit of compensation cess can be utilized for payment of your compensation cess, only that much. Okay. Then there are taxes on goods and services, wherein exception to the GST is there, wherein alcoholic liquor for human consumption. On this, you will see that the state excise and VAT both are still charged. In case of petroleum, crude, diesel, the 5 petroleum products basically, on this central excise duty and VAT is charged. On alcoholic liquor consumption, state excise duty is charged. There's a different. State excise is different and central excise is different. State excise is charged on alcoholic liquor for human consumption and VAT. Central excise is charged on 5 petroleum product and VAT. On tobacco, central excise duty is charged and GST is charged. On opium, Indian hemp and narcotic drugs, state excise and GST is charged. Okay. One case state excise and VAT, one case state excise and GST, another case central excise and VAT, and another case central excise and GST is charged. And in case of immovable property, there is no GST. Specifically land, when I say immovable property would mean leasing of land also. So will you call it immovable property? It may be a right to give the land to somebody, leasing of land. All of that is a service, but only land per se. In immovable property, land is not liable to GST. Benefits of GST, benefits to the economy, simplified tax structure, tax compliance have been made easy, and advantages. These are all the basic theoretical aspects saying that why GST was brought in, how is it beneficial. This is a self-explanatory slide. We will move on to the next one, which is very important aspect, which is the constitution aspect. Okay. Now, we have seen that since 2000, GST was tried to get in, but it was only in 2017 that it brought in because there were challenges in terms of constitutional powers. There was no power of levy of dual taxes under GST. Only one taxes could be levied. Either center could levy the duty because of the union list, or the state could levy another state list. Concurrent powers were there, but it was not in such a manner that on one transaction both will levy. Concurrent powers, what we'll see now in the list, the union list, state list, and concurrent list, in that Concurrent list refers to the concurrent power, wherein the power is there with the center. There was no power that on one transaction, both center and state will have the authority. That's the reason constitutional amendment was brought in, and it led to levy of GST in a smooth manner. Firstly, before we understand those articles, let us understand the basics of constitution. The Indian government have three types of government. One is a union government, state government, and the local government. Local government would mean your local municipality or the panchayat. If you are in a non-urban region, then you will have panchayats. So the constitution has a preamble. It has 25 parts. It has 445 articles and 12 schedules. That's the basic framework of the constitution. Now, one of the important articles, since we are dealing with constitutional provisions, we'll stick on to those provisions which are relevant for our GST. One article is Article 265, which says that it prohibits arbitrary tax collection. Okay. It prohibits arbitrary tax collection. It says that no tax shall be levied or collected except by the authority of the law. Says that no tax shall be levied or collected except by the authority of law, which means that there should be a authority of law. There should be a power given by the constitution. You should have drawn that power to collect taxes from the constitution. Constitution should give you the authority. If the constitution has not given you the authority, then whatever taxes you collect for whatever betterment, for betterment of the government or for betterment of the society, if you do not have authority, then it becomes arbitrary. Then you can collect taxes from anywhere, any place, anytime. That is not the intention. So taxes has to be collected with proper authority. Otherwise, it will be treated as ultra virus, which means that आपके पास power ही नहीं है, लेकिन आपने taxes collect कर दिया है. पूरा tax जो आपने collect किया, that becomes void. It becomes ultra virus. मतलब आपके पास power नहीं है, फिर भी आपने किया है, आपका authority गलत माना जाएगा. So few case laws to understand this is in case of Lord Krishna sugar mills, the sugar merchants, okay, they were sugar merchants who had to meet some export targets because the intention was to make lot of exports. Now they had to meet some export targets in a promotion scheme which was started by the government. But if they fall short of that export targets, then they had to pay additional excise duty on the shortfall portion. So this was challenged that Lord Krishna Mills and other mills went together to the appellate authority. They lost it. Then they went to the Union of India. That is they went to the Supreme Court and said that something like this tax is collected. It is unconstitutional. The Supreme Court of India decided that the government on its own account cannot levy this tax by itself because it has not passed by the parliament. Parliament pass करेगा, constitution में power आएगा, then only you can have charge any tax. Without any authority, without a law being passed by the parliament, you cannot levy a tax. So this was struck down, and this taxes what was collected was treated as illegal. Similarly, in another case in Tunkul versus Simirai, all the villages were paying ₹50 as a penalty kind of a thing to the headman in place of a custom to render free a day's labor. So they were laborers, and if they had to take any kind of a 1 day holiday kind of a thing, they had to pay ₹50 as a fine. This court again held that the amount what was collected is like a collection of tax. You call it as penalty or whatever amount you call it is like a tax collection. Now this tax collection is illegal and no law had authorized it for collection, and therefore it violated Article 265. Article 265, again, what it says, no tax shall be levied or collected except by the authority of law. So this collection was without authority of law, and this was struck down. That is the power of Article 265. So is GST covered under Article 265? No, because there are sufficient powers which have been mentioned in the GST. So under GST, there are specific provisions which have come in basis which GST is corrected. So GST is a constitutional power. It's not an unconstitutional one. Now the important articles is levy. Levy understood key. What is levy of taxes? Levy refers to imposition of taxes. When there is a levy power to levy, it should have the following ingredients. Matlab following act should be there. There should be definition of a taxable event. There should be what is the tax measure on what basis, what is the basis on which you're collecting the tax, what is the rate of tax, and person who pays the tax. If these four ingredients are there, it means the levy is correct. Because if you don't mention in the levy who will pay the tax, then it becomes very confusing, right? Who will pay the tax? In GST, we have in some situations the supplier will pay, and in some situations the receiver will pay. That's why we know who will pay the tax. So it should be defined. So these four ingredients should specifically be there: the taxable event, the tax measure, the rate of tax, and the person who will pay the tax. And then we have Article 245. Article 245 says that the Parliament may make laws for the whole of India. And then it says that for state, the legislature of the state shall make laws for the whole of the respective states. And no law made by the parliament will be invalidated due to extraterritorial operation. मतलब कुछ extra territory out of your country, if you're charging anything, it will not be treated as unconstitutional. It will still be validated. Like जब हम TDS collect करते हैं, for when you make income tax TDS for the foreign payments, right? You're making payment to a foreign country, then why should you collect TDS? It can be challenged, right? But that will not be challenged on the ground of extraterritorial operations, because there is some nexus with India, right? Similarly, on your import of services, if you're charging IGST, there is a logic saying that the local competition should not get affected. That's the reason I'm collecting extra taxes on the import of service, so it will still be validated. And Article 246 says that provides authority to the union and state government for levying taxes. So what Article 246 says is there is a something called in Article 246 a schedule called a seventh schedule. In that various lists are there. List 1 is the union list, list 2 is the state list, and list 3 is the concurrent list. In this union list, you have all the central excise levies. Even now excise duty is there. Like we had seen in the previous slide, right? There is a central excise on petroleum products. So that is still coming under list 1. And state list is the levies made by the state government, that is there in the list 2. And list 3 is the concurrent list, wherein both center and state will have power for this. So where is the GST coming in this? Where, under which list is GST being charged? List 3, okay. Concurrent list में, okay. So good. Everybody is giving a unanimous answer. Everybody are together and giving the same answer. Concurrent consists of center and state. Okay. So it is there under the concurrent list. Okay. So this list was there even before. right? Article 246 तो पहले से था, before GST law came in, before the Constitution 101st Amendment was there. So what is special in the Constitution Amendment? जब ये list 3 already था, when this list was already there, what was the need for bringing the Constitutional Amendment Act?
Sorry, sir, can you repeat the question?
What I'm asking is, if you say GST is levied under the list 3 as a concurrent list, then what was the requirement for constitutional amendment? Because this list was already there. They could levy GST under the powers of list 3.
Okay, sir.
This was already there. So the constitutional amendment was not needed. Then they could have levied GST before itself. When the power is already given in the list 3 and list 3 says concurrent list, then what was the need for constitutional amendment? Right. So list 3 was already there. It was a concurrent list, but it did not give power to collect taxes by both the government. Concurrent list was a list for the residuary matters, that is, those matters which was not there under the union list and not there under the state list. Those will be there under the concurrent list, but the power to levy taxes on that concurrent list was there with the parliament, which is the central government. So there was no power under the constitution under 246 which could give power for both center and state to levy the taxes. Was just indicating this around 10 to 15 minutes back, wherein I said that we have something called as a 7th schedule and there are 3 lists, and this 3 list did not give way to levy GST. That's the reason they wanted a constitutional amendment. एक constitutional amendment ऐसा चाहिए था कि there should be one special list saying that, okay, this is a special list wherein both center and state will levy the taxes on one transaction. Either you do that or do something else. So the government thought that instead of bringing in one more list, and it will not be correct because 246 says that whoever is there on that list, only one person will have the authority. So bringing in another list will be a problematic thing. So what they did is they brought in a new article itself. After 246, 247 was there. In between both, they squeezed in one article called as Article 246A, and they brought in the power to levy GST under that Article 246A. So today what we are seeing GST is not because of list 1, list 2 or list 3, not even under Article 246. The power to levy GST is coming from Article 246A. And in 246A, we will read that both the center and state will have the power to levy taxation. Okay, so don't get confused just because I've told union list and state list and now both have to levy, it will be under the list 3. No, it is through a new article called Article 246A. Okay, so constitutional amendment said that no integration in earlier laws, which was resulting in cascading effect. Therefore, a new act to integrate all these taxes. Concurrent powers should be given both to Parliament and state legislature. Then levy of integrated GST on interstate transactions, because earlier on interstate transactions CST was levied and CST used to go to the state who is supplying it. So then now we wanted to shift it from a origin based tax to consumption based tax. So then you will levy something called as a integrated GST on interstate transactions. Then the principles for determining what all things were important in the constitutional amendment was, first is concurrent power, bring in integrated GST for all interstate transaction, then bring in the principles for determining the place of supply and when a supply takes place in the course of interstate trade or commerce, will be decided by the parliament. Parliament here would mean the central government. So central government will decide when, for any transaction, what will be the place of supply and when a supply takes place in the course of interstate trade. And GST will be levied on goods and services except alcoholic liquor for human consumption. This was the broad picture of the constitutional amendment. Then the specific amendments which were brought in were Article 246A, Article 269A, and Article 279A. Whenever I say A, it means that they are additional articles which are brought in, like how we have sections in our laws. In the Constitution, they are called as articles. Article 246A gives the power to the center and state. Article 269A gives the power for levy and collection of GST on interstate supply and import. Okay? Because 246A is saying that whenever there is supply within the state, it will be a joint power, but interstate, but from one state to another state, is not mentioned in 246A. That's the reason 269A is also introduced to say that in case of an interstate transaction and in case of an import transaction, who will have the power to collect taxes. And then for all the changes, whatever, to keep the law continuing, there was a special board formed which is called as GST Council through Article 279A, which says that the council will give recommendations to the government for the GST rate, GST Act, GST circulars, GST valuation, and everything. GST council will be the constitutional body which will give lot of suggestions to the government. Okay, so these were the three additions. First, we'll read through Article 246A. Medicines, no. Drugs, opiums, which were mentioned in the state list are specifically those products, but medicines doesn't get covered there. Medicines are normal goods. It gets covered under GST. 246A says that notwithstanding anything contained in Article 246, that is the power what we have seen, list 1, list 2, list 3, whatever is contained under that, you leave it. So notwithstanding anything contained in 246, when you say notwithstanding, very important, in this lot of sections also we use the word notwithstanding. It means that it is a non-obstant clause, which means that whatever is said in that respective section which is mentioned here, notwithstanding anything contained in Article 246, matlab, whatever is there in 246, that you have to disregard for reading this article. So this article says leave out what is there in 246 and leave out what is there in 254 and listen. Notwithstanding anything contained in 246 and 254, the Parliament, and subject to clause 2, the legislation of every state shall have the power to make laws with respect to goods and services tax imposed by the union or by the state. So, in case of any transaction under Article 246A, the Parliament, the central government, and the legislature of every state, that is the state government, shall have the power to make laws. Both will have the power. It says and, right? So Parliament and the legislature of every state will have the power to make laws with respect to goods and service tax imposed by the union or by the state. And Parliament will have exclusive power to make laws with respect to goods and service tax where the supply of goods or services or both takes place in the course of interstate trade or commerce. Whatever happens in the interstate trade, for that the power will be exclusively with the Parliament. So what is this saying? That center and state government shall have power to make laws with respect to GST. Center will have exclusive power to make laws with respect to GST in case of interstate transactions. And there's a proviso. The proviso says that in respect of 5 petroleum products, today GST is not levied, but GST provisions are postponed for these 5 products. Matlab future mein on these 5 petroleum products, GST will be levied. Correct, Swati, where it is not identifiable. What is illegal, that is separate. What is identifiable, on that GST is levied. Once it is identified, that time tax has to be levied, right? So that's why there has to be a provision. That's why these provisions are available. Okay, then Article 269A. Article 269A says that goods and service tax on supplies in the course of interstate trade or commerce shall be levied by the Government of India, and such tax shall be apportioned between the union and state in a manner as may be provided. So first is on an integrated transaction, states don't have to fight. If state A from Karnataka, I am supplying something to Uttar Pradesh. So I am supplying from here to Uttar Pradesh. So I will collect taxes. Uttar Pradesh will come to me and say that, no, why did you collect taxes? It is a consumption based tax that is getting consumed in my state. So give me the taxes. So to avoid this conflict between the origin state and the consumption state, the government is saying in case of an interstate transaction, you state people don't fight. I will collect something called as an integrated tax and I will distribute it. So how it happens is it will be collected by the Government of India, and such tax shall be apportioned between the union and states in the manner as may be provided by the Parliament on the recommendation again of the GST Council. For the purpose of this clause, supply of goods or services are both in the course of import shall be deemed as supply of goods in the course of interstate trade or commerce. So whenever you're doing any import, it will be treated as a interstate supply. So I'll give you an example. This is state A. Okay. Say this is state A. Now, state A to state B, we know it is a interstate supply. Correct? So in state A to state B, if you're making any transfer, it is definitely a interstate supply. Now, in state A, there is a port. Okay. There is a port over here. I am importing some goods, and the goods are lying in this port. Now I am clearing from this port to my factory. Okay. From the port, I am clearing some goods to my factory. Will this be treated as an interstate sale or will it be treated as an intrastate sale? Should I pay customs duty or I have to pay customs duty plus something else? Very fast answer. Fastest fingers first. Don't get any extra points. Think and answer. Pragya is saying it is an intrastate sale.
Sir, can you please repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, can you see the drawing?
Yeah, sir, it's visible.
Yes. So if you are importing something in a port, which is you generally import through ports, right? So you have imported something in a port and you're clearing that goods from the port to your warehouse, which is in state A. So will this transaction be treated as in what taxes you will pay, basically? That's my question.
The IGST.
Okay.
Yes, sir, IGST along with the import duties.
Okay. You are saying it is not a supply. You are saying it is intrastate supply. Okay. Fine. So few people who have given the correct answers are the ones who have thought and given. Few people who gave the answers fast have not thought and just thought that, okay, just because I had mentioned that state A and state B is not involved, you're treating it as an intrastate. That's not the correct answer. It says here, right, that for the purpose of this clause, supply of goods or services in the course of import into the territory of India. Okay, supply of goods or services both in the course of import into the territory of India shall be deemed to be supply of goods or services in the course of interstate trade or commerce. So all imports are treated as interstate. So even if you import at a port within your state, it is still a interstate transaction. You will file a customs bill of entry, pay the customs duty and clear it. And when you pay the customs duty, you will pay the IGST also along with it. Even if you are within the state, it is treated as a interstate transaction. It is a supply definition. When we see that all forms of supply and importation is also included, so it is definitely a supply. So this supply is a interstate supply. Don't get carried away that if it is within the state, I'm moving it within the state boundaries, so it is an intrastate supply. No, it is still a interstate transaction. Okay. Now, this is what Article 269A said, that on goods and service tax on supplies in the course of interstate trade or commerce shall be levied and collected by the government of India, and such tax will be apportioned. See, just give me 1 minute. Let me complete this. Then subclause 2 and 4 said, where any amount is collected as IGST and has been used for payment of SGST, right? So whenever I pay IGST, I have paid the IGST. Now that IGST will be used as a credit by the recipient state, right? So person who is, for whom I'm charging IGST, I will charge IGST and he will utilize that for payment of IGST and then for any SGST. Now, once he utilizes that IGST for the SGST payment, then it will not form part of the consolidated funds of India. Okay, so it will not form part of the consolidated funds of India, which means that it will give the credit. The integrated tax is a bridge from one state to another state because I have to give the credit, right? I will charge IGST. The other person will take the IGST as a credit and utilize SGST. So how will that state get the revenue? That's the reason the IGST acts like a conduit between both the states. And that IGST, what is being collected, it will not go to the government's revenue. It will go to that state where you are claiming the credit. So it is a transfer. It's like a transfer contra entry, like how you have contra entry in the bank accounts. IGST is not a tax only, it is a settlement wherein you will charge IGST, it will go to the center and center has to again give back to the state where that IGST is being used. So that state will get the credit and it will not be distributed. And Parliament is empowered to formulate the principles regarding place of supply and when supply of goods or services occurs in interstate trade or commerce. There has to be principles to decide what is a place of supply and when supply of goods will be treated as interstate trade or commerce. So that is what Parliament will make powers for. The state government will not make, the central government will make powers for this. Yes, Sia, what is your question?
Sir, if suppose we are selling our goods from Delhi to Haryana and paying IGST on it, then the IGST benefit will be taken by which of the state? Haryana or Delhi?
So when you charge, that's what I'm explaining here. When you charge from Delhi to Haryana IGST, it goes as a IGST to the central government. Now, if the person at Haryana is consuming it, then it goes to the central government close because he cannot claim the credit. But the Haryana person, if he is registered person, then he will claim this as a credit and offset with his CGST liability. If he offsets with the CGST liability, still it will be retained by the central government. But if he utilizes this credit and offsets with his Haryana VAT, Haryana GST payable, then that taxes passes on to the Haryana government. So it acts like a kind of a conduit from Delhi to center, center to the respective consuming state.
But sir, center also distribute the IGST between the central government, and some part of that IGST is kept with the central government, and the half part is given to that state in which that the GST is consumed. Means basically in which transaction has been occurred.
Correct. That is after this settlement is happening, wherein any amount collected is IGST has been utilized for payment of SGST will not form part of the consolidated fund. So to avoid that, whatever is collected as IGST should go to the center and go to the state. This subsection 2 to 4 says that it will not form part of the consolidated fund, which means it will go to that respective state which is utilizing that IGST and converting it as a SGST. To that extent, it will not get distributed. Whatever is getting distributed to the state, after that, what is left out will be distributed between the union and the states. Clear?
Okay, sir.
So basically, apportionment of tax collected by Government of India is dependent on the utilization of the credit. Very true. So that's the reason you will see that if any credit you have in your GST, government will say that first offset the IGST credit, then utilize the CGST and SGST, because today, if you're paying any IGST, to which government it will go, you don't know. So even the state government doesn't know. So they will encourage you to first utilize the IGST and then the CGST and this GST. GST on supplies, what we are trying to understand in 269A is GST on supplies in the course of interstate trade or commerce shall be levied and collected by the state central government, that is as IGST, and shall be apportioned between the union and state in a prescribed manner. Import of GST, import of goods or services into India will always be deemed to be in the course of interstate trade or commerce, and IGST will be levied. Where IGST is being used for payment of SGST, such amount shall not form part of the consolidated fund of India, and this will facilitate the transfer of fund within the states. And Parliament is empowered ultimately to formulate the principles regarding what is the place of supply. That's why place of supply provisions are not there in CGST law. It is there under the IGST law. And when supply of goods or services occurs in interstate trade or commerce, that is also given under the IGST law. Next, Article 279A, which says that 279A gives power to the President to constitute a joint forum of center and state, which will be called as GST Council, wherein the provisions relating to any specific matters of GST will be decided by the GST Council. The GST Council came into force on 12 September 2016, but the President constituted the GST Council only on the 15th September 2016. Now, who are the members of the GST Council? The Union Finance Minister, who is the chairperson, the Union Minister of State in charge of Revenue or Finance, they are the members. All the members, Union Minister of State in charge of Revenue or Finance. And in case the Minister in charge of Finance or Taxation or any other members are nominated by each state members, then they will become the members. So each state will represent, and the finance minister will be the chairperson. What is 279A? It's a constitutional body. The GST Council is a constitutional body for making recommendations to the union and the state on issues relating to GST. What all issues under GST it will recommend? It will recommend the GST rates. It will tell should we give exemptions or no. It will tell the it was initially when the GST came in, there was a fitment committee wherein GST rate was decided by the GST Council. Then the principles that govern the place of supply, the principles, the threshold limit, the special provisions for special states, special provisions for special category states, and some special rates for specified periods during any natural calamity or disaster. So this is the power of the GST Council. When we are saying the special category states, there are 11, which is 4 plus 6 plus 1 more. Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Jammu and Kashmir, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Nagaland, Sikkim, Tripura, Himachal Pradesh, and Uttarakhand. These are the 11 special category states. 279A further says that how is the what are the other things what it will do? GST Council will recommend when GST will be levied on these 5 petroleum products. Then it will further say 1/2 of the total number of, like, for any resolution to be passed, 50% of the members who are there, like total members who are there, like 33 states plus finance minister 34, at least 50% should be present to constitute a meeting. Okay. So the quorum is the minimum number of members which are required to start a meeting. That quorum is 50% of the members, and every decision what is discussed at the meeting should be passed by a voting, and that voting says that at least 75% or 3/4, right? 3/4 is basically 75%. 75% of the votes should be cast in favor, only then it will be passed. Now, voting system works in such a manner that the vote of the central government will have a weightage of 1/3, because you have one side central government and all the states together. So the voting of the central government will be higher. Central government will have 1/3 share, and all the state governments will have 2/3 share as totality. That is the weightage of the votes. Then other constitutional amendments are, so now we saw 246A, 269A, 279A. These are the additions. Apart from that, existing articles which were there, they have been suitably been amended to include the provisions. 248, firstly, it's articulated wherein it gives residuary powers to Parliament to make laws. This power is subject to the power what is given in 246A. So 246A GST power cannot be touched by 248. So if the Parliament wants to make any power on the GST, they cannot touch it. GST will be decided by the GST Council with the center and the state. Then Article 249 and 250. 249 and 250 says that in case of any national interest, that is 249, and in case of any emergency, right, states cannot form, they make things, or they're not able to decide if there is any kind of, say, nuclear explosion or there's a bomb explosion in the country, that states will get not stable, it will get unstable. So then what they should do, then they will have to have a supreme power to decide what will happen in the state, because then the state government cannot decide. It's a part of the union. So then union, that is the central government, will decide what will happen in such case. Even the GST also will be decided by the central government for that respective state. Article 268 says duties which is levied by the union but collected and appropriated by the states. The duties of excise on medical and toilet preparations was earlier levied by the union and collected by the states. Now this has been removed. That's the reason we see that medical and toilet preparations are coming under GST. Got it? Now these articles we understood for the benefit of students in Hindi. 248 ये बोलता है कि जो भी पावर, रेसिडुअरी पावर है, जो पावर है गवर्नमेंट को लॉ बनाने के लिए, जो यूनियन लिस्ट, स्टेट लिस्ट और 246 के अलावा कुछ भी बनाना है, तो वो स्टेट गवर्नमेंट नहीं बना सकता है, सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट बनाएगा. सो द रेसिडुअरी पावर सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को है, बट वो पावर सब्जेक्ट टू 246A के सब्जेक्टिव है. इसका मतलब जीएसटी का पावर सिर्फ स्टेट और सेंटर बना सकते हैं, लेकिन बाकी सब चीजें स्टेट सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट बनाएगी. दैट इज 248. 249 और 250 भी अमेंड हुआ है। 249 बताता है कि अगर नेशनल इंटरेस्ट में कोई स्टेट बोलता है कि मेरा स्टेट का कंट्रोल सेंट्रल कीजिए, तो सेंटर कर सकता है। और इन केस ऑफ इमरजेंसी, कुछ फॉरेन डिफेंस की वजह से कुछ हमला हो गया है, तब भी वो स्टेट बोल सकता है कि मेरा कंट्रोल सेंटर करेगा। तो वो केसेस में भी अमेंड हो गया टू मेक लॉज इन द नेशनल इंटरेस्ट। सो 249 और 250 पावर देता है सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट को कि जीएसटी जो स्टेट गवर्नमेंट की पावर है, इन केस ऑफ नेशनल इंटरेस्ट और इमरजेंसी, सिर्फ इन दो केसेस में सेंटर स्टेट का जीएसटी कंट्रोल कर सकता है। ठीक है। फिर आता है आर्टिकल 268 विच सेज दैट ड्यूटी इज लेविड बाय द यूनियन बट कलेक्टेड एंड अप्रोप्रिएटेड बाय द स्टेट। ये तो पहले से ही था। इसमें क्या था, दो चीजें थी, स्टैम्प ड्यूटी थी और मेडिकल एंड टॉयलेट प्रिपरेशंस थे, जो यूनियन बताएगा कैसे कलेक्ट करना है, कलेक्शन स्टेट को ही जाएगा। लेकिन अभी उसको इस आर्टिकल से हटा दिया गया है और उसको नॉर्मल जीएसटी में ला दिया गया है। तो टॉयलेट एंड मेडिकल प्रिपरेशंस पे दोनों सेंटर और स्टेट जीएसटी लगाएगा, ना कि पहले जो सिर्फ स्टेट कलेक्ट करता था। तो वो चेंज हुआ है। National interest would mean that when the state has become bankrupt, okay, and it is not in a position to do anything, or the state's uh, chief minister is not active. In that case, for the national interest, the state government through a majority can say that central will rule our state. Okay. Then comes Article 270, 286, and 368. Article 270 says that the taxes levied and distributed between the union and the state. This article provides for distribution of GST between the center and state. Okay. So this article which says whatever is levied and collected as IGST after distribution to that respective state, what is left out will be distributed between the center and the state. Then Article 286 says that restriction as to imposition of tax on the sale or purchase of goods. States will not have any right to impose GST on interstate supply of goods. It will be levied by 269A by the union government. So interstate will be by the central government itself always. And then Article 368 says that any amendment, if you have to make any amendment in the constitution, your amendment will include any amendment to 279A also. That is, any amendment if the has to be made to 279A. 279A is the GST Council. If you want to make any change in the structure, voting rights, or powers of the GST Council, it has to be by 2/3 majority of each house of the parliament. मतलब 2/3 majority of the Lok Sabha, 2/3 majority of the Rajya Sabha, and अगेन एक्स्ट्रा प्रोटेक्शन दिया। ऐसा नहीं कि स्टेट गवर्नमेंट वहां पे लोकसभा राज्यसभा में हो गया। रैटिफिकेशन मतलब कंफर्मेशन, कंसेंट बाय एटलीस्ट 50% ऑफ द स्टेट्स हैज टू बी देयर। सो डुअल पावर है। जीएसटी काउंसिल को कुछ चेंजेस करना है तो नॉट इजी। 2/3 ऑफ द मेजोरिटी ऑफ ईच हाउस ऑफ द पार्लियामेंट एंड हाफ ऑफ द स्टेट्स का कंसेंट रहना जरूरी है। Ratification means, see, one is approval. Before doing any change, you need approval. That is called majority power. Ratification is after it is approved to set right it or to okay it, to confirm that what they have done, we are okay with it. That is called ratification. कि एक एक्ट हो गया है, वो एक्ट के बाद आप बोल रहे हो कि हाँ मैं भी उसको सहमत हूं। That is called ratification. Any questions? Yes, Nagesh, what is your question?
Sir, good afternoon, sir. Recently, the amendments are going on. The Congress has saying that रॉयल रॉयस पे सेस ज्यादा है कम है कंपेयर टू इनोवा vehicle. Is it true, sir? This is one. And second, uh, this is one. Whether it is true, sir?
No, I'm not aware of that. It's only a political news. That cess maybe, are you saying the GST cess or is it the import cess?
GST says, sir.
Okay. No, I don't think so because the cess is on the basis of the cubic capacity. So if the cubic capacity of that car is less, then it will be less. If it is higher, then it will be higher. Otherwise, the cess is generally at 12%.
And
Correct.
whether,
And
sir,
yeah,
life insurance policy should get exemption
sorry.
in GST?
Okay.
Whether the life insurance policy should get exemption in GST? What is your thought in this?
See, it's not on my thought. It is whether it is legal or illegal. Today on insurance policy, GST is levied. It is levied because there is some commercial aspect also to it. So GST is levied, and GST is not levied on the whole premium. There is only a percentage of the premium which gets charged. So it is correct. If it has to be challenged, it has to be challenged saying that the act itself is unconstitutional. Only then it can be challenged. Cess, what is cess? Cess is an additional tax. After GST also you pay extra cess, which is called as compensation cess. That is a cess which is levied on one transaction. Okay, generally cess is on tax, but the cess under GST is on the value of the goods itself. Suppose you're buying a car, on the value of the car, you will pay 28% GST and 12% cess on the base value itself.
Sir, I did like goods and services or goods. What is the article 26?
Madam, I couldn't hear you.
Sir, Article 286 wrote it, amended with the words goods and services or both.
Right.
What it means, because उसमें ऊपर लिखा ही हुआ है कि गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज है, तो नीचे भी यही कह रहा है कि अमेंडमेंट कर दिया है गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज और बोथ.
करेक्ट. तो गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज, या तो फिर आप सिर्फ गुड्स सप्लाई कर सकते हो, या तो फिर सिर्फ सर्विसेज सप्लाई कर सकते हो, या फिर दोनों भी सप्लाई कर सकते हो. सो व्हेन दे से गुड्स, मतलब गुड्स समझते हैं हम, सर्विसेज समझते हैं हम. गुड्स और सर्विसेज और बोथ का मतलब हो गया है जब एक ट्रांजैक्शन में आप दोनों गुड्स और सर्विस दोनों प्रोवाइड करते हो, तब भी जीएसटी लगेगा. सिर्फ गुड्स होना या सिर्फ सर्विस होना जरूरी नहीं है. जैसे आप कुछ एयर कंडीशनर खरीदते हो, तो आप सिर्फ एयर कंडीशनर नहीं खरीदते हो, जो सप्लायर है एयर कंडीशनर वाला वो उसको इंजेक्ट करेगा. करेक्ट. तो आप जो प्राइस पे कर रहे हो उसको सिर्फ एयर कंडीशनर का नहीं, आप उसको घर पे लाके इंस्टॉल करने का भी चार्जेस हो गए. गुड्स और बोथ बोथ हो गए, गुड्स और सर्विसेज दोनों हो गए. तो इसीलिए जब हम कॉम्पोजिट सप्लाई की बात करें, सप्लाई में आप देखोगे दैट मिक्स सप्लाई एक अलग होता है, कॉम्पोजिट सप्लाई होती है। कॉम्पोजिट सप्लाई के लिए भी जीएसटी लगता है।
Okay, sir.
Okay, so we'll deal with this MCQs, then we'll take more questions. Many of you have given correct answer. The correct answer is Article 246A. Second question, GST came into force by which constitutional amendment bill? The few are saying 101st. Amendment Bill of 122 and Amendment Act of 101st. So we are talking about Amendment Bill. The question is on Amendment Bill. Correct answer is 122nd Amendment Bill. Okay, so bill is different, act is different. It is 122nd Amendment Bill and 101st Act. Third question, GST is one of the biggest tax reforms of independent India with aim of enhancing overall growth. It's a comprehensive dash indirect tax levy on goods as well as services at the dash level. Kavita's question is, cess is used for any particular type of product? Yeah, only few products it is levied. It's levied on tobacco, aerated drinks, and mostly cars. So only on these products it is levied. GST is a what tax? It's a destination based tax. So it's not a origin based tax, it's a destination based tax. And it is not levied at the state level, it is levied at the national level on all the states. So it's a destination based tax levied at the national level. India has adopted a dual model. Therefore, on an intra-state sale, what will be levied? In case of import IGST levied, then there are, oops. In case of import IGST is levied, oh my God, I'm not able to, then there are two state involved, then how the IGST will be distributed by central government and between whom they will distribute. I think it will distribute such IGST will claim, okay. So in case of a IGST, it goes to that state where you are buying it. So if you are in Uttar Pradesh, you are importing it. So you will be levied IGST. Once it is IGST, you claim it as a credit. And then how you will utilize it, that decides which state it will go. Immediately on importation, it will not go to any state because it's a IGST and it's a loss to the government because they will have to give you the credit, right? So they will give it as a credit to you. Once you utilize, that will go to the respective state. Okay, so the correct answer is, in case of a intrastate transaction, of course, CGST and SGST. Next is the uniform policy which is recommended by the GST Council on e-way bill will be totally, what is the impact of this e-way bill? Correct. D, both A and B. It eliminates the need of the check post and it breaks the entry barriers. When we discuss on e-way bill, you will understand this better. We have a separate chapter on e-way bill as well. Various taxes which is levied under different taxes were subsumed under GST. So basically the question is, certain items will continue to be taxed both under central excise and GST. What are they? All of the above. Wow. How can it be all of the above? On alcoholic liquor for human consumption, it is a state levy, right? So how can you say that central excise and GST is charged on all the products? That is incorrect. Central excise and GST is levied on tobacco and tobacco products. So it is tobacco and tobacco products. Okay. Be careful what kind of duty they ask, because one is central excise and GST, one is central excise and VAT, one is state excise and VAT, and state excise and GST. So you have to be careful. Under model GST law, taxes paid on inward supplies made by a registered person is available as ITC, which can be utilized for making. So ITC of CGST can be utilized for what? Okay, it's pouring D. Yes, first with the CGST, then with the IGST. The tax under GST legislation in India is being levied exclusively by the union, simultaneously by union and state, only by union or only by states? Simultaneously by union and state. Correct. Various taxes have been subsumed. One is basic customs duty, taxes on lotteries, and environment tax. Which of these taxes have been subsumed under GST? For everything, somebody is saying D. Arun Jain, it is not D. How much ever D's you give? The correct answer is B. Only taxes on lotteries and environmental tax has been subsumed. Basic custom duty is not subsumed. Taxes on lotteries and environment tax are the two taxes which have got subsumed. Customs duty लगता है तो इसीलिए customs duty is not subsumed. So customs duty even after GST continues. So that's why we say customs duty is not subsumed. Alcoholic liquor for human consumption is subject to what? A, C, lot of competition between A and C. Saying only state excise duty, लेकिन alcoholic liquor पे तो both लगता है. It is state excise and central sales tax. Both are applicable. Okay. If it is interstate sale, then CST will be levied. And if it is intrastate sale, VAT will be levied. So both state excise and VAT is levied on alcoholic liquor for human consumption. Any doubts in this chapter till now? We'll get into the supply in the next chapter, which we will have a discussion on Sunday. Before that, so if you have schedule, okay, so schedule is simple that it is every Friday and Sunday. The weightage of this chapter, I'll go through it. I have not gone through it. The Board of Studies has presented a module kind of a thing wherein they have mentioned for each chapter what is the weightage. We will have to go through it. Previous year questions as such is not discussed in the classes, Priyanka. Yeah, Om Krishnam is saying from 0 to 5% is allotted for the introduction chapter. Yes, in this chapter, we need to focus more on constitutional amendments. Okay, the classes will be uploaded. I think it will happen till the end of October. Mid-December. Okay, till mid-December. Okay, thank you very much. We'll see you again in the next class on Sunday. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.